So welcome everybody online and welcome everybody here. Thank you for making the effort on this Sunday afternoon to come and come and hear about Energise Buckinghamshire. So Energise Buckinghamshire is Buckinghamshire Community Energy's first investable project, so we're super excited about that. We've been going for about 5 years and finally we've got something that we can bring to the table and hopefully people will flock to support it. Next slide please. Peter. So for those of a lot of you here in the room know what Buckinghamshire Community Energy is already and probably online as well, but I will just go through it. So I'm Kirsty Shanahan. I'm the chair of Bucks Community Energy, and Buckinghamshire Community Energy is a community energy group. Next one, please, Peter. So community energy groups are asset locked. They're owned by the community for the community's benefit. They operate like basically like a cooperative, and they are regulated by the FCA and they're registered on the mutuals portal. So they are an official incorporated body that can take investment. And anybody can invest £10 and become a member. That's a member share. Or you can invest in a project like this one and become a member through that investment. Next, please. So community energy originally started in the feed-in tariff days. And as you can see, Ed Davey was a big fan. And actually, this is a picture at Low Carbon Gordano, of which I'm a board member as well. And it started in the days of feed-in tariff, which was a fantastic subsidy. And it usually started with farm solar, or people got it put on their school buildings, rarely, or on community buildings. And because that was such a good subsidy, it provided great returns and created community benefit funds from the surplus. But it was basically an opportunity for local people to invest, and they could start investment at £1 up to £100,000. So it's very democratic. And so since the feed-in tariff ended, powering down has become more of a thing for community energy groups because that's what we can get grants for. So that means energy efficiency advice. And Bucks Community Energy has a team of about 15 energy champions who go out to village fetes and do warm home assessments and energy assistance. Energy assessments and things like that. So that's powering down, helping people to reduce energy, and powering up is obviously trying to get more solar and maybe a wind turbine or hydro. That's what community energy likes to do. Next one, please, Peter. Thank you. So why are we doing Energise Buckinghamshire? Next one, please. So there's various problems in the energy system that we need to solve in order to get people to decarbonise at home. So because home decarbonisation, i.e. getting people off gas and oil heating and cooking, is one of the biggest sources of carbon emissions in the UK. And the grid is already decarbonising a lot, but it's that problem at home. And also the system needs quite a lot more rooftop solar, so that we don't cover all of our fields with solar farms as well as houses. So as you probably have noticed, the UK is extremely vulnerable to energy price rises, and our orange friend over the pond invading can literally change our economy overnight. And so what we need to do, as well as transitioning more and more people to kind of decarbonise and own generation, we need to get them off gas and oil heating, and that obviously puts a greater load on the energy system as well. So we are going to gradually be electrifying, and we are also needing to decentralise our system, because at the moment it's set up for gigantic generators like gas-fired power stations or nuclear power stations, and then that energy travels a huge distance to get into our homes, and it does waste. So if you've ever walked under a pylon and it's going tick, 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 that's basically energy falling out of the pylons. So we waste about 4% of our electricity just from transmitting it. And the other thing is that alongside this kind of secure, decentralised system, we also are trying to democratise the energy transition and make sure that nobody misses out. And Energise Buckinghamshire, to some extent, is hoping to do some of that by providing solar and battery storage for people that can't otherwise afford it. Next slide, please. So obviously the energy system is struggling a little bit, worrying about upgrading infrastructure, worrying about curtailing generators at the moment. So we've got a lot of wind turbines out in the sea, but they can't always supply the energy where it's needed. So in Scotland, which has a small population, they have lots of generation, but it's actually needed in the southeast of England. And they are building the transmission network and the interconnectors to supply that energy to where it's needed. But it's a slow and very expensive process. So the more local generation we can have, the better, because every time they curtail the generation, they stop the wind turbines or the gas-fired power stations generating, they have to pay them to do that, and that goes on our energy bill. So when there are energy prices rising, that obviously also drives up consumer debt and it drives up inflation, because energy is at the heart of our household budget. It's not just a utility, it's actually underpinning our entire economy. So energy is a really crucial asset, and you could almost say in this day and age it's almost a human right like water, because we really can't live without it. And so the electrification of that, as I said earlier, means that the grid operators are going to have to spend billions of pounds upgrading the infrastructure, not just the transmission network, which is the backbone, but also at the grid edge. So the transformers that you see on poles, even the cabling to our houses, all of that is going to have to be upgraded as we get air source heat pumps and electric vehicles. So we need more renewable generation at the point of demand. So we reduce wastage and we take that generation and demand off the main network, off the primary substations and the transmission network, and we just keep it hopefully within secondary substations. And eventually we'd like to have more of a system where people are supplying their neighbours. Next, please. So the solution to all these problems is local generation combined with consumer-led flexibility. What do I mean by consumer-led flexibility? It is basically you at home turning up or down your generation and your demand. So, for example, if you have a battery, it means you respond to a price signal. That means you export to the grid. If they want the people to turn down their demand, then they will give you a price signal, so they'll offer you a tariff or some rewards or something for not using energy at that point in time. And so flexibility is what they use basically to reduce constraint and pressure on the grid. Next slide, please. So it has value because it basically stops the grid overloading and exploding. Because when we have lots and lots of generation, so when everybody's solar is generating, that increases the voltage on the network. So we need more people to take that off in order to balance the grid, so balance the voltage across the grid. And to do that, the grid is obviously constantly balancing and monitoring systems. But as we electrify more, and as long as we have intermittent generation, that does make life a little bit more difficult for them. Also, expanding the grid generation capacity at local level. So instead of having our fields covered in solar, if we have 100 homes with 5 kilowatts, that's half a megawatt of solar that's not going on a field. So it's trying to encourage people to have solar on their own homes. And also, if you add battery storage to it, you have controllable, dispatchable, clean energy. So it decarbonises the grid, and it gives the grid what it needs when it needs it. So at peak times, people's batteries that have been filling up off the solar in the middle of the day, at the peak times, they can then dispatch that energy and supply it to the grid, which is a much more efficient way. Like if we can ease the demand curves and take the intermittency out of wind and solar generation by using batteries, that makes the whole thing work more efficiently. So the other reason why it has value, consumer-led flexibility, is to avoid these grid infrastructure upgrades, reduce the curtailment costs, and also ensure that the supply is reliable and affordable. And we were talking about SPEEN earlier and the power cuts. Those are going to become more of a thing if we can't get a grip on the infrastructure upgrades that are needed. And ultimately, we're going to lower carbon emissions by making life easier in an electric world, and by making the grid less expensive to upgrade. It also takes a really long time for the grid to upgrade. So if we can avoid that as well, we can, because at the moment we've got lots of solar farms in the pipeline, for example, but they can't connect to the grid because the transmission network is struggling to upgrade in time. So the more we can do at a domestic level, until we overload our own secondary substation, of course, but the more we can do then, until then, the more helpful that will be and the quicker we can decarbonise. Next, please. So because we're solving a problem, we're going to be creating local value. So what this project, Energise Buckinghamshire, does is to make the energy flows and the money flows within the energy system more local. So the UK needs more homes to have solar panels, and many families can't afford them, or older people as well. It's not just families, although families tend to be large electricity bills and large mortgages and large bills generally because they've got young kids. So it would be great if we could help more families, because then we can tick lots of boxes. So the solution to that is to provide solar panels and battery systems without an upfront cost. However, there are lots of financial solutions out there which are not very fair or very nice, that are backed by VC capital or big banks and charge people lots of interest. Now, I'm not saying that people aren't going to pay a bit more with us, but we're going to be putting that money back into our communities and back into community benefit. And we're enabling people to access a financial solution that is for them, that takes into account their needs, that is run in the community and that can be trusted. And we're very much hoping to partner with our homeowners. It's not going to be a doing things to them or swinging contracts or whatever. It's got to be a win-win-win for everybody. And so we're looking at community-owned domestic solar. And if we do our 200 homes, we'll be looking at 4.2 megawatts, which is a decent-sized solar farm. So to do that at the domestic level and have the income from that coming back into the community, into investors' pockets, and helping those homeowners to save money, it's definitely a beneficial situation for everyone. Next, please. So what we will do in the first phase, but we'd like to do 200 homes because the model works with 200 homes, but the first phase will be 100 homes with 5 kilowatts of solar and a 17 kilowatt battery. Now, that's a really big battery for most homes that don't have an air source heat pump or an EV, but it's big for a reason. That is because we are going to buy and install and maintain and operate those systems, and we are going to use that big battery to make extra money so that we can make the financial model work for us. So they will benefit from 5 kilowatts of the free solar, and they will get the export generation from the Smart Export Guarantee, although the battery filling will take priority. And depending on how we optimize the batteries and what the homeowner needs, they will benefit from at least 5 kilowatts of the battery, which will be cheap or free from the solar or from a time of use tariff. So they will definitely save money, even though they will be paying us. At the moment, the modelling is suggesting about £85 to £90 for an average house. But we will be producing models and proposals for every home based on their half-hourly data. And they should save around £300 to £500 a year on their energy, even after they've paid Bucks Community Energy for the benefit of using that service. So, as I said, we're not yet. So we're going to, as I said, buy and install the panels and look after them and operate them. And we will be tracking the homeowner savings and the BCE income and everything, because a lot of it we don't know exactly how it's going to work in terms of their energy use and their energy profile. We should have a fairly good idea based on the modelling. We've got some really cool, smart people called Below Zero Energy doing the modelling. Next slide, please. And I can show you on this, if you can make that big, please, Peter, that'd be great. So this is an average semi-detached family of 4 house, and they use about 4,500 kilowatt hours a year. That's about average, and they're paying probably around £1,200 for their electricity at the moment. If they bought the solar and battery themselves, then they would bring that bill down to about £384. If they then also put it on an agile import-export tariff, so they would be basically participating in the flexibility markets, but via their supplier, probably Octopus or somebody like that, then they would receive £169. And then if they were on a flux tariff, which Octopus has just cancelled, unfortunately, because of energy price volatility, but if they were on that, and hopefully they will reinstate that, then the income would be £500, just nearly £500. So you can see that the net gain for the homeowner is basically pretty much £1,700. So if they give some of that money to us, that funds the solar and battery, great. They make money by saving, and they also get some income from their Smart Export Guarantee. And the other thing is that we, as an organisation, can access the the flexibility markets using an aggregator, what's called an aggregator, who provides access to market, to the wholesale energy market, which is very complex and made up of lots of different things. But there are two things we're interested in. One is the balancing mechanism, which has its own market, and the other is the flexibility services market, which is relatively new, but is becoming a real focus for the DNOs. Next one, please, Peter. So the other home, I just thought we'd put this in as an example. So this is a house with an electric vehicle. So they use about 7,000 kilowatt hours per year. It's a detached house, and their energy bill at the moment is £2,000. They don't get into the negative because obviously they are fueling their car out of their energy as well. But even they would have a net benefit of about £1,500 if they had a battery and solar at this scale. So, so the modelling, we're pretty confident that the modelling is going to make sure that everybody saves and everybody benefits. What we're essentially doing is we're switching the energy money flows from big corporates with very well-paid executives on six-figure salaries. We're switching that money into our local community. So it's a really kind of novel, innovative way of viewing the energy system. Next, please. So the money comes from community and social investors. So anybody can invest from £100 up to £100,000. And you become a member of Buckinghamshire Community Energy in the process of investing. So you get a vote at the AGM, you are a member, you can join the board. So it's really democratised. And we're projecting that you will get 5% interest at least for the first 5 years. And then, if all goes well, it should continue. But we may flex that because we do want people to withdraw at some point. But the point is, though, that interest rate is decided at the AGM by the members. So if you don't agree with the board, then you can come along and voice your disapproval. However, what usually happens in community energy is that the members go, yeah, we trust you, carry on. But we like it if people do get involved because it's supposed to be, everyone together. So we will pay you interest annually. That will accrue from the 100th commissioned installation. So you give us the money, but we hold on to it while we do the installations, and then the interest starts to accrue. So this is very much patient capital. This is not a bank or a loan or a government bond, and immediately you invest, you get money coming into you. It is patient capital. You are doing this for a social impact and a climate impact, and to do something ethical with your money. So if you want a quick buck, this is not the investment for you. Having said that, though, it is less risky than stocks and shares, I would argue, and we will allow people to withdraw shares. Again, that's a board decision based on the liquidity in the business. So there is a bit more flexibility. So a lot of community and all hardship, if somebody dies, then the money can be withdrawn or it can be transferred to a family member. So, so obviously as part of our responsibilities, we've got to manage the member and the share registry, and we give you the opportunity to vote on important issues. And that's not just the interest rate, it's also projects. If we want to do a wind turbine, we would bring that to the members and say, how do you feel about this? Okay, next, please. So the progress we've made so far, so we've had 2 launch events in Hadnam and Western Turville. We've got about, I think we've got 26 homeowners have so far expressed an interest in becoming a host home. So we thought actually it might be better to extend it because we had interest from other places sort of saying rather forlornly, please can we have it? As long as we can get 10 or 20 houses in one location, then we're happy to do it. We're not achieving great economies of scale by doing it one street at a time. I think the next locations are going to be Chesham, Amersham and maybe Prince's Risborough, but we've also had interest from A. So we'll be doing 3 more local launches for homeowners and a lot more investor launches online as well, so that we can find times that suit everybody. So we launched the pledge form on the 13th of May, and we had 4 pledges online and a lot more verbally. Actually, I've been quite encouraged. I think people haven't bothered with the pledge form because they're waiting for today, basically. And we probably may need to use FX, which, if anybody's heard of FX, they're a kind of ethical investment platform that regularly raises money for community energy projects. So we've got them on standby if we need them, but I'd really like to raise as much money as we can directly because that saves us money. Next, please, Peter. So we've lined up our installer partner. We probably will get another one lined up, but we're sort of thrashing everything out with one installer. That's Kimball Solar, who are local, near Wickham. And we've got, we're using Energy2, who are based in Speen, in Buckinghamshire, and they manufacture their batteries in Reading. And we're working on the customer journey. We've got a CRM in place, and Gavin and Kimball are working on the kind of service level agreement to make sure we've nailed down what happens after the installation, how we're going to look after those installations, and who's going to do what. And Energy2 has capacity to do the first 100 homes, and they are scaling up anyway. They're very popular and successful business. So, and we're negotiating with aggregators. I think we've probably chosen the one we want to go with. So that's kind of, that will be ready to go by the time the first installations come. And our other partners, Below Zero Energy, are doing the modelling. They're fantastic. And Freeths, Freeths, which is a very well-known, very expensive lawyer, they're doing something called Power Hours, which is free pro bono legal advice for community energy groups, and we're their first project with this. So that is super cool because they won't have done a customer service agreement before, I can almost guarantee you, but we're getting that benefit. And we've got an insurance provider called Nature Save, and they're quite used to quirky requests from community energy as well, so should be able to get that nailed down. Next, please. So there was some uncertainty in my mind about whether we could survive if we just did an agile tariff, whether we should do 100 homes or 200 homes. So in the documentation online, I have modelled the 4 scenarios, 2 lots of 100 homes and 2 lots of 200 homes. With just an agile tariff, which is not as generous to the consumer as the revenue stacking from aggregation on the market, it still works by year 3. This is for year 3, when everything's settled down, we've done all the installations, all the money is coming in and out. And you can see that it kind of works okay. But with 100 homes, we won't be able to pay back all of the investment in 20 years, which is the aim. So we do need to get to 200 homes, but we're doing it in 2 tranches, mainly because we need to see if we can raise that first 100 homes and see what appetite there is. But you know, I'm very much hoping we can raise the full 2.3 million. Next one, please. And so this is scenario 2, 100 homes with the flex income. The difference between the two, they're actually fundamentally the same in year 3, but the difference between the two is that there's slightly less operating profit from the agile tariff, but it kind of does collect itself a little bit. But we definitely want to get onto the flex, and we're aiming really to be on the aggregator from the get-go, and that should be able to be in place. But because I wasn't sure, I've modelled both ways, and they do kind of work out. However, next slide, please. The 200 homes, either with an agile or with the flex income, basically, this we can pay back in 20 years. It's a very robust model. It's got lots of play in there, and just because it gives us more capacity, and the overheads then are less of a material consideration. So, next one, please. Does anybody have any questions?
I have one, Kirsty. Has this been done elsewhere in the world, elsewhere in the UK? How is there a sort of evidence that this is feasible?
Well, there are some people doing it in the commercial space. The first one that's sort of community-ish, it was Metis over in Oxfordshire, and they were doing a grant-funded programme, and they installed 300 homes. The sad thing about that, though, is because it was grant-funded, they had to uninstall all of the systems when the grant ended. Absolutely bizarre. But they are currently working on an agreement with Oxfordshire Council to roll the programme out for real, working with homeowners. There's also SunSave and HomeTree, who basically do loans, and they're set up and they're FCA compliant to operate it as a kind of lease model, where the homeowner owns it at the end of it, though.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So it's a loan basically, but I don't want to do it like that really, partly because it costs about £100,000 to get FCA compliant and do things as a loan. So ours is a service that we're offering as a subscription, so it's more like a broadband subscription basically. So we put the kit in the house and then the person uses it, and yeah.
But the hardware remains the property of the project rather than ever
Yes.
passing into the hands of the homeowner.
Well, after 20 years, it'll be nearing end of life, but
Yes.
probably not at end of life. So at that point, we'll say to the homeowner, you can either keep this and keep it working and then, uninstall it when it stops working. We don't know how long. It could be 5 years, it could be 10 years. Or the homeowner could decide to keep us, keep paying us, and then we'll uninstall it when it does come to the end of its life. Or we'll just take it down. So that's the idea, but it's a really long-term relationship. Yeah.
Actually, one
Gary?
thing that just occurs to me is that this would appear to be Sharia compliant, so potentially attractive to the Muslim community.
Well, that is a very interesting observation. I had not thought of. I don't really know much about Sharia law, so.
They're not permitted to pay interest or to charge interest on a loan. So this would be, similar to the way they do the Sharia compliant mortgages, where the bank owns the property and until all instalments are paid.
Very interesting. Yeah, but we do pay interest, so we pay the investors interest, don't we?
Yes, but they are the.
But the homeowners could
homeowner
be,
is not receiving
yeah.
interest.
Or they're paying it.
Yeah. I shall put that on the website. Thank you.
There was an online question.
Yeah, just
Online question in the chat.
And we've got a hand up as well.
Justine, you can unmute and ask it live if you
Hello,
want.
hi. Yeah, I was just going to ask what the minimum term is of keeping your investment in, and how easy is it to take your investment out?
So basically, it depends on the board's decision and how much liquidity there is in the business. So it's usually decided by the board every year, and it's based on making sure that it's not going to make us go bust. With the financial modelling that I've done says that you can withdraw after 3 years. And then after that, it's basically will be on an ad hoc, and it's usually done first come, first served. If there's hardship, then we try and make arrangements for that. But again, it depends whether we've got the cash in the bank to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else online or here? Oh, hello.
Hi. If I've understood correctly, you're looking for 2.3 million to install in 100.
In 200 homes.
Oh, 200
yeah.
homes.
So 1.3 for 100 homes, and then another
Okay,
million
so I'm
will
glad
get us
I
to
asked.
the next one.
I'm assuming that assumes an average installation cost per home as part of the calculation. Are there other costs apart from the installation costs? Because if it's 200 homes and 2.3 million, then it's about 12,000
Yeah.
per home.
There are lots of other costs, so it's not 12,000 per home.
No,
But so we have costs such as staff, obviously,
Yeah.
and doing the promotion and all of that kind of stuff. We need obviously to pay a share registry. If we raise with Ethics, they charge 3.5% as a fee of the raise, so that's 35 grand on a million right there. So that's why I'm keen to kind of raise as much as we
Yeah.
can in the community.
So I suppose in that case my question might be, what is the average installation cost per home
It's
based on
fixed.
200
It's
homes?
fixed.
Okay.
It's fixed, and in order to ensure that we can achieve that, that's why we do the home assessment. So we're looking for relatively simple roofs, no reinforcement need, no complexity. As easy install as possible. And because we're providing it, we can be a bit picky about that. So.
And do you know what percentage of homes you are likely to need to survey in order to find those easy homes?
No idea,
Okay.
but hopefully we've done some filtering with the homeowner expression of interest. We've kind of put in some questions that hopefully people will think, oh, I've got thatch, okay, I can't do this. So, but that's an unknown. It's a known unknown.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ron?
What happens if the homeowner wants to move house?
So again, on the form, we've said if you think you're going to move house in 5 years, then please don't sign up at all. But if somebody does need to move after 5 years, or even within the 5 years, we would try and get their buyer to that. They would do an introduction. So we're hoping that people will be able to transfer this contract to their buyer. And to be honest, if it's going to save you money on electricity, I really don't see why you wouldn't take it up. But yeah,
So my concern would be whether it is a barrier to a perceived barrier to somebody selling their house, and that would mean that it would put people off going down this route. So,
yeah, it may well do.
Yeah.
It will be right for some people, it will be wrong for some people.
Okay.
This is really for people who were going to put solar and a
Yeah.
battery in their house, but they can't afford it.
Yeah.
So I mean, most of us have solar, and I think it adds value to our house because it cuts down our monthly bills, which means we can afford more on a mortgage, etc., etc. So I think most people are now perceiving it. Where there might be an issue is if people think, well, hang on a minute, this homeowner, I'm not going to own that kit. But to be quite honest, our housing market has lots of situations where we're not entirely in control of the property that we've bought. I mean, leasehold, for example. So it's not unusual for people to have stuff. And, we're very clear in our paperwork, the customer service agreement, we're being as transparent as possible. So hopefully the buyers would take it on. But
And would people who receive these systems have the opportunity to buy out the remainder of the contract if they're selling the house?
No, because then it would be perceived as a loan in law.
Right.
So that we give it to them after 20 years, or they just keep using it under our auspices. Yeah. Are there any more questions online?
There was some in the
There's one in the
chat.
chat.
Oh, there was some in the chat.
Peter,
Peter, do you think you could read out any questions in the chat, please?
You can read them on the screen.
Yeah, okay. So I've answered the question about moving. Yes, so they commit to the subscription for 20 years, but if they need to leave, then as I've said, it just transfers. And if they need to get out of the contract for any other reason, we are aware that there may be some situations where maybe they need roof repairs, or we've got to remove it for some other reason. In that case, we would do it. But we're hoping that the process of assessing the home, we will know whether somebody's got the kind of roof that's going to need repairing, or and also we will see the whites of their eyes at some point, and if they don't look like they're going to be a good partner for us, then we
I
wouldn't
suppose
proceed.
another consideration is, do you take into account the age of the people? For example, if you've got a 90-year-old who...
It's funny you should say that, because I think Martin said that to me. Are you still there, Martin? Oh, there you are, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, didn't you say that to me? You were like, what if I'm not in my house at the end of 20 years? And I said, well, I very much hope you will be. We will cross that bridge when we get to it.
I'm thinking in terms of, the person who has the solar installed dies 2 years later, where there's community energy.
I don't want to discriminate on the grounds of any age or anything like that, so I think it will be on a case-by-case basis. But I think a lot of people anyway of that age are thinking, actually I can't enter into any long-term contracts about anything because, so we'll play it by ear and see what happens.
Sure.
Yeah. Alan?
It's actually possibly takes away a problem that we come across a lot talking to the community. People say, well, I'd like to decarbonise, I'd like to have solar, but I'm never going to get the payback.
Yeah,
Whereas if you do something like this,
that's a good point.
there's no upfront and you're getting the benefit immediately.
Yeah. Yeah. So it might help some older people, especially if they are struggling with their energy bills. But yeah, and I think we'd maybe want them to talk to their family as well about how the family feels about it. So.
And if
You
it
could
was,
all get caught up in probate for 5 years or something.
well, if your assumption is that buyers of these properties will want to retain the system, then it doesn't really matter whether they sell or they die, because that's going to, over 20 years, these houses will mostly change hands.
Yeah.
So a critical assumption is that it's not de-installed by the purchaser.
It is,
But
yeah.
the reason for the transaction is not relevant, because whether
No.
you're buying a house from probate or from a living vendor doesn't really influence
Yeah.
whether you accept
Yeah.
but the contract will end with the sale of the property. It doesn't bind the purchaser. It's not, there's no covenant.
No, and it's not a charge on the house or a title or anything like that. No, it would just transfer over. But actually the question you might be asking yourself is, if the house is in probate for 4 years and nobody's using any energy in the home, then who is going to pay the monthly fee? We will, I think, still be making the same amount of money from using the battery on the flexibility market, and the smart export guarantee will come to us. We will arrange that with the family. And the same happens if somebody stops paying the monthly payment. We will stop letting them use the battery and the solar, and we will just transfer how all of that money flows around. So, Sean?
Kirsty, I'm not quite clear what constitutes a community of 100 houses or something like that. How close do they have to be physically?
So we started with Hadnam and Western Turble because I would like to have them in villages, because then you get more of a swirl and excitement around it. But we're not doing it based on streets or transformers or even on primary or secondary substations at this stage. But going forward, after the first 100, I really would like to try and get people all on the same substation, because then we can do a bit more funky stuff with, like, Energy Local Club maybe, or virtual power plants, but like in a more community way. But at the moment, we just want to get people excited about it and hopefully get them in similar kind of pockets.
So if there's somebody who's not in Hadnam or let's say, for example, Wendover, and they live in a sort of community type estate, would that be of interest? Because it could be 100 people in that, or I mean, what's the minimum? 10 people in an area? I mean, it wouldn't be one person.
I mean, ideally, if we can get 10 or 20 people in a particular town or village. So Wendover, absolutely very happy to have people come forward. And when people have come up to us and said, well, I live in Aylesbury, can I have it? I've said, if you can get 3 or 4 of your neighbours together to do it, then we'll definitely consider it, especially if they're in the same street. So it's really a question of just doing the expression of interest or coming and chatting to us and seeing what's possible. But yeah, definitely.
I've got a couple of other questions, if that's all
Go
right.
for it, yeah.
If the homeowner already has an EV and the equipment set up to power the EV, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Does that cause problems?
I don't think it makes that much difference, because as you could see from the second model, they use a lot of electricity, so they are likely to benefit, although they'll already possibly be benefiting from a time of use tariff with their EV charger.
I was thinking more on a technical point of view, with our current provider, Scottish Power, for example, put something in. How are they dealt with?
It shouldn't impact them. It shouldn't have make any difference. No.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's an online.
Yeah. Another question.
Oh, another question. Yes, Jill. So I did try and get Metis to give me their documents, and they dragged their feet and said they were very busy with other stuff, so they wouldn't let me plagiarise it, which was very annoying of them. But Freeth and we have also using AI actually, but we've used a kind of a model that's used in other service contracts. And I was also going to approach SunSave if I couldn't come up with a solution. But Freeths have a consumer law expert, and so I'm pretty happy with the advice. And yes, and we have, I think, plagiarised the Q&As off the SunSave website as well, haven't we, Jo? I think we're pretty sure we use SunSave, and also I ran through it with Dale Hoyland, was the Oxfordshire Council contact for Metis. For the Metis project, so I got him to do me a presentation about how it went and what the issues were and what the take-up was like and stuff. So yeah, so done a pretty fair amount of research. Then there are other models, actually. I forgot to mention things like Energise Barnsley, which provides solar and battery on social housing, but that is funded by the feed-in tariff received by the council, and so they can offer the energy for free to their social housing tenants. So there are a few models, but different things.
Yeah, I think you mentioned if you don't get enough funding from investors, you would have to go to effects or somewhere like that, and they charge 3%. So what, presumably you sort of have a break-even point as to how much you would need to raise locally, do you? In order to give back a 5% return, if you're having to pay 3.5% or whatever it is on, say, the whole million, 1.3 million, then, well, you wouldn't be paying back to investors. But if say 10%, you only raise 10% locally, you know, how would that affect the return?
So the financial model assumes that FX raises the whole amount.
Does it?
Yeah, because that's the worst case scenario.
Yeah, right, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Um,
Sorry, and one question related.
Yeah.
We're talking about homeowners and them dying. You know, there's quite a few silver surfers right of us here, and you know, as we get older, you were mentioning if one dies, the money could be taken, you could be repaid. Would there also be the opportunity for that to be, that contract to, that investment to remain with another member of the family?
Yes. Yeah. So you can nominate somebody to have the transfers made to. Yes. And Iris, yes, SunSave, yeah, they are a loan model, and so is HomeTree. Alan?
You said you wanted to pay back all the money within 20 years. How likely is that, and what would you do if people wanted to just carry on earning their interest?
Well, we would have to explain to the members that at a certain point, we're not going to be receiving an income on those 200 homes, and so that we won't be able to pay interest. So I think they'll be self-selecting. But also with withdrawable shares, you know, when I've done the kind of scheduling of the withdrawals are out to 20 years. It's actually 21, 22 years because some of the homes will be done, you know, it'll be staggered. But basically I've reduced, in that model, I've reduced the interest rate periodically because that will motivate people to withdraw in a kind of orderly fashion. And as you know, it's their choice at the end of the day. But there are always alternatives for investment. So what we are doing at this point is saying, well, 5% is competitive with savings accounts, ISAs, depends which shares, stocks and shares you buy and that kind of thing. Government bonds, things like that, they all fluctuate, don't they? So 5% is competitive now, but if the Bank of England drops its interest rates, then 4% will be competitive next year. And so we have to constantly monitor what's available, what we need people to do, what the liquidity is in the business, how many people have died, you know, have we had a COVID crisis and people have suddenly wanted to withdraw their shares. So it'll be a constant balance throughout the 20 years. But I've basically modelled it where it drops by 1% sort of every 5 years.
Is this 200 a one-off situation, or will there be further tranches envisioned for?
If it's successful, I don't see any reason why we shouldn't just keep going until everybody that can has solar. And when you look around Buckinghamshire, all the new houses we've got with these lovely, empty, uncomplicated roofs, you know, there are thousands of them. So once we've proven the model, there are some question marks around how long the flexibility income is going to be maintained. But the government in the Clean Power Plan has basically asked for another 12 to 19 gigawatts of consumer-led flexibility, and that is home batteries. So after the first 200 houses, we might just do 100 batteries into people's homes, because you can still get a lot of benefit from a time of use tariff like an Economy 7. So there's lots of funky things we can do after we've made the 200 homes work, and you know, the sky's the limit at that point.
Just so I understand this, the asset depreciates to zero over 20 years, the thing you're buying, the solar panels, the batteries, the hardware. So you've got to fund the return of capital and a 5% yield over 20 years.
Yeah.
So that if everybody stays in for 20 years, you've got so much capital at the end, which you've just accumulated from revenue, that you can pay everybody's whatever it is that they put in back?
No, the model depends on people withdrawing over periodically. Yeah,
but if they don't, then they'll all be there at 20 years.
Yeah, I don't want them all there at 20 years.
Right.
But it's a very worst case scenario in terms of the revenue. So if we get better revenue than we expected, we can either do more in the community with our surplus, or we can start putting more systems on without going out to the market again, or we can put batteries in and just use the batteries. You know, that we have quite a lot of options with that extra capital.
Yes.
But the model at the moment does assume that people will withdraw over time.
Because if I invest in renewable energy infrastructure trusts, which have models out to 20 years, which are based in part on the cost of the electricity which they generate and sell, and are very sensitive to what would the price of, you know, a kilowatt hour be in 2035. Nobody knows. They employ expensive consultants who give them a range of numbers, which are surprisingly varied.
Yeah.
And so that issue and the issue of the depreciation of the turbines or the panels mean that actually these are highly speculative and then hence very volatile investments. I'm just concerned that the same dynamics are operating here, except they are, at least in theory, a pool of permanent capital because they replace, they repower the plants. So whereas this is a one-off thing, which we all depreciates to zero. Investing in things that depreciate to zero quite quickly is.
Do you think 20 years is quick?
Yeah, it is, compared with the alternative applications of capital, which are essentially permanently revenue yielding. If you anything else, if you lend money, money on deposit, or most commercial organisations are unlikely. Bonds, will be there forever.
And have you modelled for a proportion of the batteries possibly having to be replaced at some point
Yes,
here?
and the inverters as well.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, Tom, I think basically the interest that we pay to the investors is by far the biggest cost on an ongoing basis.
Yeah.
So it is in our interest to get people to withdraw once they've had it in for a few years. If they want to keep it in there, and hopefully we will grow, as Gary said, hopefully we will do more. But the whole idea is, the objective is not to create a long-term investment for people. The objective is to get solar and battery storage into people's homes so that we can get to net zero quicker. So in terms of when the investment is paid and how long the investment is for, it doesn't really matter if it depreciates to zero at some point, because people will go and do something else with their money. There's always other options to do things with your money. So as far as I'm concerned, and a lot of people, they invest, and they're in a savings account for 5 years. It's got high interest, but after 5 years they take it out and then they move it somewhere else. And I think as well, and this is a bigger philosophical question, but I'm a great fan of degrowth and a great fan of new economics and thinking about things differently. There is no harm in this project finishing in 20 years' time, and the homeowner gets the kit. You've all got your interest and your capital back. Everybody's happy with that. And if we've carried on, then we might need to we might refinance for the next 100. So you can put that and do that instead. So.
How sensitive is it to changes to the technology available? What I'm thinking is something like vehicle to grid, something like that. That sort of multiplies the amount of potential capacity that could be done via different means.
Basically we do, in the customer service agreement, people will be asked to tell us if they change their energy demand. And, if they're going away for 6 months on a cruise or travelling or whatever, they need to kind of let us know so that we understand why their energy use is changing. Vehicle to grid.
The reason I'm thinking is isn't so much the individual homeowner, it's the business model in 5-10 years' time.
Yeah, if you've got 1 million vehicles, vehicle to grid, then that's an awful lot of battery on the grid.
Yes, I don't think it's particularly likely.
I would say vehicle to grid is still a few years away.
I think they're launching it commercially possibly later this year.
At scale, it's still a few years away, I'd argue.
Possibly,
to make a difference. You still need a lot of batteries on the grid, and if those
definitely.
batteries are in fields owned by commercial companies or in car parks owned by people, it's still the same amount of batteries. So I think vehicle to grid will eat into large commercial batteries more than it will into home batteries. would be my guess.
And don't forget as well that lots more people will be getting EVs and air source heat pumps and induction hobs where they've got gas at the moment. So the demand for electricity is going to absolutely rocket anyway. So it's going to take quite a while to reach that kind of point of equilibrium where the market's saturated. So.
And of course the data centre thing pushing up.
Yes, data centres, yes. Any other questions? Any more questions online? No.
Well, in terms of you're talking about wanting to pay back capital to people by the end of the 20 years, I mean, some of these type of investments pay back a certain amount of the capital each year plus interest, so that over 10 or 20 years the capital has all been repaid. Is that a model you've considered as well?
Well, that's basically what's in our financial model. So
Okay.
we'll just have to see how things are going.
Yeah.
But it also depends whether people want to repay. So it's not like a loan where it's all fixed, like to a bank or whatever. It depends if people want to
There's
withdraw.
flexibility for the investors.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi, Joe.
Well, we've got lots of more questions and answers that we can add on to our FAQs, but it's just coming up towards 5 o'clock, so I'm just wondering what would be the next steps for anybody interested.
Thank you, my glamorous assistant, keeping me on track. So yes, I think, Peter, are you recording it?
Yes.
Wow, so Peter's, yes, so the recording will be available. So you'd be, wow, you can watch me back. So to answer your question, Joe, the next step is the investor form is now live on our website. On the community share offer page, and I've updated the community share offer document, so it's got the latest figures and a few answers and a bit more detail since the last time I did it, based on the questions that have come up in our launches. And the financial model has been updated to show the 4 scenarios. And it's got a lot more detail in. So if you've got questions about marketing and promotion or overheads or whatever, there's a lot of information in there. And yeah, so the next step is actually on the slide, there was a QR code, but just go to our website, you'll find your way to Energise Buckinghamshire and invest, please.
And the timescale for?
Well, the first 100 homes, I'd really like to have that raised by the 31st of August, which is 2 months. But as we all know, August is a non-month now because we've become very French and nobody does any work in August. So we may have to extend it a bit. And I'd really like to have the other million also raised by the end of September so that we can start installing the first 100 homes and then, you know, before we get to Christmas, have the next one. But I will take Ethex's advice on that, and it also depends how quickly things go. You know, we're going to have to make a call at some point. Do we go out to Ethex sooner or later or what? So, and we've still got so much work to reach people. It's really unbelievably difficult to cut through, and you know, so I've got to do quite a lot more events, and we've got to do a lot more evangelizing. So all of you, please tell your friends, and if you think it's a good idea, that is, you know, everybody at home as well. Tell your friends and neighbours and people you dislike, even as long as they're nice people that you dislike, because we really need to make this a goer. This is Buckinghamshire's first community share offer in a long time. It's an innovative project. I can see Alex up there. He's from a community energy group over in Bedfordshire, and he's watching us with great excitement. And I've had loads of people come to me and say, "How are you making this work?" And I'm like, "We are going to make it work." And you know, everybody's super excited about it. So, but we've got to make it happen.
So is this exclusively for Buckinghamshire, or if there was a village just over the border in Oxfordshire, can they-
Oxfordshire don't need any help from us. Are you kidding? No, this is for Buckinghamshire. But I will share my knowledge with Bedfordshire, don't worry. Sorry?
We're in Oxfordshire.
I know, but this is a great place for the ley lines. And also, you know, Peter has all the tech, so that's why we're here in Oxfordshire. However, this is for Buckinghamshire. Buckinghamshire has been starved of initiatives like this, hasn't it? We've got loads of great climate action groups, but no leadership from our council. And, you know, we're all busily doing it at the grassroots level. So anyway, rant over. So I think we'll wrap it up there. If anybody has any more questions, please don't hesitate to email me. If you'd like to meet for coffee or have a chat, please feel free, or do a Teams call or whatever. I'm very conscious that it's quite complex and new and innovative, and you might think of things after, so please feel free to come forward. And thank you so much for your time online. chaps, thanks for your time online, and thank you for being here in person. It's been great to get so many people in the room, so thank you.
Thank you.